Good evening and welcome to Nox Mente. How are you tonight? Tonight's guest is Vanessa Kindell. Vanessa is a witch, musician, a dabbler, and all-around creative type from Ohio, with a deep fascination in all things weird, magical, fortian, esoteric, and cult. She is Wiccan, but follows her own variant of Wicca, based on the ancient Sumerian, the Kabbalah, and a little bit of the Tao Te Ching, which she is currently writing a book about. Outside of the magical, she is a Linux enthusiast, reader of poetry, loves to hike, and plays board and card games. Vanessa, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Vanessa.
Hello, thanks for having me.
This is great. So I want to just interject here. So Vanessa is on our server, on our Nox Mente server, wins the gold star for posting pretty much everyday dreams, and they're always I'd say in the 90% range of intense, great dreams and fun to read. I read every dream. So for that, she gets the gold star. Just, girl, you have kept the dream room alive. It's impressive. It really is impressive. I mean, seriously, I can't even do it. So, and I just want to thank you because you make our server a better place.
Well, we're starting off with making Vanessa blush.
Well, good, excellent. It's the truth, though, and anyone that goes in there can see that. That's for sure. So let's get right into this. You know how it goes. I want to know about your early life. So the stuff that inspired you, the stuff that sticks out, and we'll move from there. The stuff that inspired you or scared you, the stuff that just kind of pops out from the ethers of your memory.
Well, should we start with my earliest memory or my earliest dream memory?
Let's start with your actual, what you think is a memory.
The first memory I remember, and I know it's a real memory because I later found a home video of the thing happening. But the earliest memory I remember was being a baby, not even able to walk, laying on the floor in the living room, and my dad's playing with me, and he has this mechanical dragon toy, and it was battery operated, and it would light, its eyes lit up, and it walked forward, and it like roared as it was walking forward, and he like had it running towards me, and it scared the ever living crap out of me. And so that's my earliest memory, was being scared of a dragon.
I was just going to say, what a perfect thing, too. It's a dragon, especially knowing where you end up, being all witchy poo and everything. It's so good. So on that, did you have it? So I like that this was that early. Did you have any fears other than this early memory, like dark fears of the darkness, fears of the wood under the bed?
Well, I grew up next to a forest, so I was never really scared of the woods. That was kind of my playground growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I did have this period of time, I think when I was around preschool age, when I was convinced that there was like a demon in the bedroom that messed with me. And I kept like calling my dad in to like check under the bed and stuff, because I swore up and down that like every time he left the room I could hear breathing coming from under the bed.
How did your dad explain that to you?
He tried to convince me that I was hearing my own breathing being like reflected off the wall.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Not having that.
Yeah,
not having that. But of course, every time he came in, it stopped. So what else was he gonna say? You know.
It's interesting that you thought it was a demon rather than, like, say, a monster, even though they could be interchangeable, but that language is specific.
Yeah, well, I mean, my parents were very, very Protestant, so I was raised with, like, that kind of language surrounding me in my childhood, so.
Okay, so you were raised Protestant. For some reason I thought you were in... your bio says Ohio, and for some reason I thought you were in Wisconsin. You know, you look very
Never even
Wisconsin to
been to
me.
Wisconsin.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, you have that. You just have a Wisconsin look to me. I don't know why that. I have spent so much time there. So that's interesting, though, that in the Protestant experience when you're little, can we talk about that a bit?
What about it?
Well, I just want to get some of that terminology out. So,
Did you
like,
handle snakes?
No.
Okay.
isn't it, that's charismatic stuff, Jerry? Isn't it like
Well, you said what?
Pentecostals?
Isn't that
Specifically Wesleyan pietism.
it's all the same.
Ooh, I don't even know what that is. Wesleyan.
You're probably
pietism.
more familiar with the parent church, which is the Church of God in Indiana.
Oh, I am. There's some of those in Iowa. I mean, maybe they're all over, but I've seen them in Iowa.
Yeah, I think they're mostly in like the area around Indiana.
In the
'Cause they all
Midwest.
kind of because the parent church is kind of their equivalent to the Vatican, for lack of a better term.
So was there was there a big emphasis on, say, the darker stuff?
Not so much. It's just my mom was really afraid of everything, and she was convinced there was demons around every corner, so that kind of rubbed off on me somewhat.
It's interesting. I've just recently been trying to understand more of these different Christian sects. I find it fascinating. And so I've
I
been
find
in
it
a
absurd.
yeah, because you grew up with it, but I didn't. And so I've been in listening to crazy people on YouTube and in chats with them. And yeah, I'm just trying to understand it. And some of them are really juicy is from an outsider's perspective, on the whole demon front, and especially the end times that we're allegedly in and all that. So
The biggest thing about this one is they swore up and down that they were non-denominational, but that really translated to meaning that they didn't want a word for what they believed
yeah. Yeah.
because they were just as denominational as anything else.
Did you watch TV at all, like cartoons?
Oh yeah, I had a lot of
What were highlights for you within all that?
um it's kind of normal stuff for my generation, SpongeBob,
Oh, geez, I love SpongeBob.
that kind of stuff.
Okay, so SpongeBob, like that general standard stuff. And you already gave us the fact that you had a good relationship with nature and all that.
Actually, I have one thing that I was when I was a young kid, we had Winnie the VHS tape, and there was one that I watched over and over and over, and I think I probably put the tape out, and it was Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day, and I loved that one because there was a really weird, trippy dream sequence. He's being like attacked by giant heffalumps and stuff, and I would just watch that one over and over and over to see the weirdness.
Yes.
The Heffalumps and Woozles scared the shit out of my kids when they were little.
I loved it. I watched it over and over and over.
There was
Of
a
course
Disney.
you did.
There was a Disney album or some songs that came out around the Haunted Mansion, and one of them was called Grim. Oh, I know what it is. It was an album of all the songs that play inside the Haunted Mansion that my kids had to have, obviously. So there's one song called Grim Grinning Ghost. Grim Grinning Ghost. I forget the words, but it's the guy with the deep voice, that super deep voice, Disney dude. You know who I'm. Anyway,
I'm not entirely
scared the shit
sure.
out of my kids.
I've only been to Disney twice in my life.
You're less mind controlled than the rest of the public.
It only takes once, Vanessa. It only takes once.
Well, see, my family in Ohio, there are 2 amusement parks here, so we tended to go to those more than anything else. So, like my summers, we always got the Gold Pass at Kings Island, and we would go there like multiple times a year in the summer.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And they had their own kind of version of the Haunted Mansion when I was a kid. It was called the Phantom Opera. It's just full of animatronic spook things, and of course, that was like one of my favorite rides.
Yeah, of course.
Weirdo.
I'm that same kind of weirdo. I was always drawn to all that Okay, so back here, back in the early days, dreams. What do you have from this period? Like the earliest dream you can remember, and then stuff around
The
that early.
earliest dream that I remember was when I was really young, still in a crib, and I would go to bed in the crib, and I remember like having this reoccurring almost nightmare, but not really, not like make you scream, but just make you unnerved kind of thing. And the dream was that I was in a cage suspended over an abyss,
Ooh.
and yeah, I think it was probably prompted by the fact that I was in a crib. But yeah, I had that one reoccurring as a young kid. And that was really the earliest. I don't really remember any other dreams from that period in my life, but the next earliest dreams I remember is when I started having sleep paralysis.
So let's look at this one in the crib, though. So the crib, ha- like I remember being 6 months old. Do you think you were around that age?
I'm honestly not sure. I just know it was before my sister was born because when I was a really young kid, before my sister was born, there was a bedroom in the so there was a hallway, and like all the bedrooms were off the hallway, and the next closest bedroom to my parents' bedroom was essentially the younger kid room, because like I was the firstborn child. So like I would in the dream, like it was prompted by that room. Like I remember taking place. Like I'd be in that room, and then the room would fall away, and it would just become the abyss, and the crib would turn into the cage. So I know I was in that room. So I know it was before my sister was born, and she's like 2.5 years younger than me or something. Um, no, 1.5 years. So I must have been like less than 1.5 years old, because after she was born, because that room was already set up for a baby, they made that her room, and then they moved me down the hall to the next room, and that's where I was for the rest of my childhood until we moved houses. So I know I must have been less than like 1.5, but
Okay,
where
that
at in that range, I'm not entirely sure.
no, that's good. It just establishes how early that was. That's really spooky. So you said it was a reoccurring dream.
Hmm. Yeah, I
How
know I
long
had
did
it at
that go
least a
on?
few times, because I remember one where my mom had put me to bed, and another one where my grandmother had put me to bed.
Okay, right. That's a good way of distinguishing. And do you think it was on that same time period, or did it stretch out for year?
I'm not sure. I don't remember. I just
Okay,
remember the visuals. Like that was what stuck out in my mind.
yeah, that's great that you remember it that far back, and that it's that gothic, you know. Excellent. Oh, and what sign are you?
I am a Cancer.
I love you, cancers. I love cancers so much.
Tropical Cancer, sidereal Gemini.
Yep. I am tropical Taurus, sidereal Aries, sidereal Gemini. And my tropical rising is Gemini. What's your rising?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well that's good. That's more than most people actually know. They don't
I
usually know
have
this.
the chart here. I just have to pull it up on my phone.
That for me, the sidereal stuff's where it's at. Truly.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. It seems to resonate with me more than the tropical.
And well, it's also where, a lot of old school predictive astrology is seated. It's in that sidereal stuff. So juicy. All right. I see you're pulling it up though. So
Yeah.
everyone, Vanessa's a nerd. she has she is so organized and crazy, like with these charts and stuff of the dreams. Awesome.
Okay, let's see. So, which one is rising? Let's
On the
see.
far left, right on the far left. Oh wait, if you're looking at it, yeah, it's on the left.
I'm looking at the like circle chart thing.
Yeah. So it'll be on. You could put it on the screen. I think I
Oh,
might be able
I
to
hit a
see it.
button. There we go. I mean, I can hold it up.
Oh yeah, it's too little. I can't see it.
Yeah, that camera's kind of
It's all right.
um
But I would love to see that chart. If you'll send that to me privately, I'd love to look at it.
okay.
Okay, so let's move on. So you said earlier about
I think that's so it's the next one after my sun sign, or
no, it's so there's a line in the middle that separates the top and the bottom. And so it's going to be the signs on the far if you're looking down at it, it's going to be on the left side. Let me get that right. My left and right looking down, it's going to be on the left side, and it's going to be the dividing houses right there from
I,
the
s- I see
12th.
the houses. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So between the 12th and the first house, there's this. It'll say AS, and in the little chart under it, it'll say that too. Ascendant AS.
I don't see that.
So it's just going to be.
I must be looking at something.
We'll
That's
look at
not
it. I'll look
what
at it later. We don't need
okay.
to talk about
I'm
that, but
using Astromatrix, so
I definitely am interested in looking.
okay.
So back here, you mentioned about early sleep paralysis. When do you think that started?
Definitely after I moved bedrooms. I know I was young.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I think it was before I started school, but I'm not entirely sure. I just know I was young. And hey, hon, sorry, my girlfriend just walked by. Um, I'm not exactly sure how old I was, but I know I was definitely young, and it was after that I moved bedrooms.
So, and then will you walk us through some of the experiences you had with sleep paralysis at this age?
It was pretty much always the same thing. Excuse me. And I had it multiple times. I know I had it like it was like it was such a problem that my parents ended up like talking to the doctor about that, which scared me.
Oh
But
my.
it scared me more than the sleep paralysis did. But it was always there was just a shadow being in the corner of the room just staring at me, and I couldn't move, and I would try to open my mouth to scream, and I couldn't even like I could barely get out more than just like
Yes. Yes. Pretty classic. And so was this a standard experience? Do you have it a lot?
I had it enough that it scared my parents, so there's that. Um, I can't say how many times, but it had to have been like at least 8 times, maybe more. Like it
Okay.
happened a lot, like for multiple years.
And was there a time, so moving along this particular thread, was there a point in which you actually were able to get out of body with it? Because that's usually the whole process that can happen.
I hard to say. There was a thing that happened more than once where I felt like I fell out of my body and like into a dark pit underneath my bedroom, which my
Yes.
bedroom was a ground floor and there was no basements. There was nothing actually below it, but I would have this recurring experience where I would feel like I'm falling and then I like look around and I'm just in this like darkness.
Yes, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. You can and you can play with that. Like I would go up and down, I'd elongate myself and spin.
I definitely made myself spin, but that was as far as it got and then it never happened. It only happened like twice, so
When you did drop out of your body and fall to what you're calling the pit, where did you find it scary?
it reminded me of riding a roller coaster, so I thought
Yes.
it was fun.
Yes. That's actually a great way to look at it when I'm trying to describe it to people because it's kind of hard to describe in a way. That's interesting. If you're the first person that I know this is a common experience, but not a lot of people seem to come on and talk about it. I'm always trying to get people to talk about that. Did Okay, so on that, do you remember around what age you were when that experience was those experiences were happening, the spinning and the drop out of your body?
It was around the same time.
Okay, so it's all happening there. Interesting. All right. You know, everybody knows I automatic write, which I think is there's another term for it called scribbling. Scribbling, automatic writing, so I see what comes out. So let's talk about the architecture of your dreams. In your general experience with dreaming, and this is at any period, how does it look? How does the dreamscape appear to you?
Well, it depends. Uh, I actually like came up with like a 5-level classification chart to try and explain it
Of
because
course you did.
so the first level is what I call an impression dream, where you like wake up and you have like a concept in your head, you don't really know what it relates to I that thing, almost
Hmm.
as if it's kind of like I don't throwing things at the wall. A level 2 would be like just like an image plus an impression. Like, you wake up and you have like, level 3 would be um just like a typical narrative dream where it seems like you're watching kind of just like watching a narrative play out. Level 4 would be like where you're aware of the dream in some fashion. You are not necessarily aware that you're dreaming, but you at least like know like you have control over it and it feels real in quotes. And then a
Hmm.
level 5 is a what the fuck this shouldn't be. This completely breaks my brain. There's no difference between the dream world and the waking world. It's all the same. I don't know what's going on.
Yes, 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 yes. How often do you have level fives?
um I would say like about 6 to 8 times my entire life.
When was the earliest one?
Sure. It's like, because I didn't record anything when I was a kid. Didn't think of it as being important. And I went through an atheist phase where I just basically discarded anything weird because I didn't want to deal with it. I used atheism to kind of cloak that. Um, it's kind of like an escape. I didn't deal with it. Um, so in that time period, I kind of forgot a lot of stuff. So I'm not entirely sure.
So, all right, so let's step back a minute, but I want to get back to if you have other details on other level five dreams, like actual memory of them.
The the most recent one that I remember that like is still really fresh in my mind was I was actually staying over at a friend's house. We were like staying up late playing video games and eating pizza and all that kind of goofy nonsense. And she was still like wide awake and she was like up on her computer and I was exhausted. So I went to bed and I like was sleeping and then, like, next thing I know, I'm like getting up. I think I had to like go to the bathroom. So I get up and go to the bathroom, and in the bathroom is like this like bottomless pit. And then I wake up again, and I had never got out of bed. And so I was just like, well, that's weird. So for some reason, I decided to go up the basement stair because she was in a like she was staying in a basement at the time. So I started going up the stairs, and then like a shark shoots down the stairs and tries to eat my face off. And then I wake up again, and then I'm like,
Oh,
was
wow.
like, okay, well, screw this. So I go and sit on the couch, and then like the couch falls over, and the building starts collapsing, and then I wake up again, and this happens like 6 or 7 times. And then when I finally do wake up for real, I'm just like, am I even awake? What even is reality? Is reality even a real thing? And so like then my friend had to like calm me down and help me sort out what's real and what's not.
How old were you when that happened?
This was like a couple years ago, or
Oh
this was
man,
last summer, I think.
this is super recent. That's incredible. And had you been on any kind of psychedelic or anything that may
I've
have,
never done anything like that.
so this is all natural.
Yeah, like the when it comes to stuff like that, other than like, having sometimes weird stuff when I take like cold medicine, like other than like that, the only thing close to anything like that that I've ever done was drinking alcohol. So I'm really vanilla when it comes to substance use. If it's basically, I am like the dare kid.
Oh, you're hilarious. So, well, that makes this even more significant. This is this dream within a dream within a dream. And in your terms, the level 5, the what the fuck, is incredible. And something I've noticed is the repeat terminology of a pit. So it started with the early with the crib and then falling into the pit under your, under your body, under your bed. That
Huh, I never
is,
even made that connection before.
oh yeah, girl, I'm onto this stuff. So that's interesting. But this several dreams within a dream, I can say I've never had, is interesting, and they always sound really scary to me, where you actually
It
are
was more just
questioning.
confusing. Like, it was just confusing. I was just like, what is even happening? What is life?
And see, so in my experience of interacting with you on the server, you you are already like there with these conversations, like this existential stuff. So that's what's so fun about interacting with you. Uh, so were you questioning those kinds of things this
I was
last
already into the occult by that point, so yeah.
yeah, let's get a timeline for that. When did you start getting into all this alternatives from your lives, coming up Protestant into, which is, all the alternative stuff, which would be this occult stuff?
Well, like when I first got into magic was actually only like 2.5 years ago, but I've
Hmm.
always had like an intense interest in the paranormal and the weird, like boats and Bigfoots and ghosts and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I find that people are drawn to this. I hate to say this, but I'm going to anyway. I feel like people are born to these things. I don't know. We bring in like occultists seem born to me in a weird way. You can study it, but I know I just notice over and over again that, like Gordon White says, were you always so weird? Were you a weird kid? Right?
I
And
was definitely a weird kid.
that's
Spelling
always a theme, right? Isn't it? So there's something about that born to it term. And I mean, you definitely qualify. So magic
I
about
mean,
2.5 years ago, you were always into the sci-fi.
my like my favorite one of my favorite books as a young kid was this ghost story that my grandmother had about this ghost that lived in the attic. And I don't know whatever happened to that book because after my grandparents died and I was like over there going through their stuff to try and decide what I wanted to keep and what we wanted to sell. I looked for that book and it was gone. So I don't know whatever happened to that or if I just imagined that entire thing, but I've looked it up and that storybook definitely exists. So I don't know.
Do you remember the name of that book?
I don't, but it was about this friendly ghost that lived in the attic, but like the family was scared at first and then they found out
Not
he was
Casper, right?
friendly and so no, it
Okay.
wasn't Casper, though I did have a Casper VHS that I loved to watch too. I
I loved
watched it so much
Casper
that
when
it
I was
got
little.
destroyed and I had to throw it away, and I was sad that I had to throw it away.
I loved Casper when I was little. I love Casper.
And then when I got a little older, like one of my favorite books was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which, had all that really creepy artwork, that pencil or I guess pen on ink, pen and ink
Hmm.
drawing artwork. You know what I'm talking about?
I feel like I do. Yeah.
I can go get the book. I have it. It's on the other side of the room though.
If you know the name, Jerry can pull it up. He puts that stuff in chat, and
I
then
didn't. I wasn't listening. What was it?
Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. There were 3 volumes, but I had the collected one. It was all in one. And it's the one with the really creepy pen and ink drawing
They
artwork.
made a movie of it.
oh,
Did
cool.
they? I'm not even familiar.
It's not out yet. That's why.
Oh, how timely is
Well,
that?
if it's not entirely done by that artist, then I'm not interested,
So
because it was really the artwork that drew me
Stephen
to
Gamel
it.
is his name.
Yeah, the stories weren't that interesting, and there was, I think, a later edition that didn't have the same artwork, but it was the artwork that really, like, I really loved that artwork. Scares the crap out of my girlfriend, though.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, Jerry's going to put it in show notes and in the chat. I will definitely be checking that out. Okay, so back to, let's get the nuts and bolts out again. So when you dream, how does the dreamscape appear to you? So color, black and white. Do you have smell? Can you read?
Well,
All that
that's
stuff.
part of why I was getting out my classification chart, because like at a level 1, it's just ideas, but like at a level 2, it's images, but they're always in color.
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced that the whole black and white thing was entirely bait, because a lot of people were watching black and white TV at the time. Like,
I
I
think
think
you're
that's
onto
just like
something
a
there.
generational thing, because I've never met anyone who wasn't from the generation of black and white TVs that have said that they've ever had a black and white dream. So
I think we've had a couple people, and indeed, I think they were older. Like, I think,
like, I remember my mom telling me that she had a couple black and white dreams, but of course she was from that generation that grew up with black and white TV. And I think that's the only person I ever talked to that said they had a black and white dream.
Jerry, you were going to say something.
I've never had a black and white dream. And I had a black and white TV.
But anyways, so the ones that were actually more narrative driven, it's like watching a TV show. Like you're looking at this thing happening, sometimes even third person, though not always.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes like playing Doom. But then like at a level 4 where I'm in some sort of control, even if I'm not necessarily lucid in the technical sense, like in the ones where I'm like, I feel like I'm driving the story in some way,
Mm-hmm.
those seem to have a reoccurring landscape, like a
Right.
consistent landscape. I don't always know where at in that landscape, but like I seem to have like a separate set of memories in that landscape, and like it seems like a consistent narrative, though it jumps around temporally in comparison to this life. So like sometimes I'll be in the dreamscape in that world and I'll be a kid, sometimes I'll be an adult, sometimes I'll be even older than I am. It kind of jumps around.
And at this level, do you have like a place that is home, or that you return to, that's like you live there?
Well, that's the thing about like I'm convinced that if I have a life in that, like if it is a consistent life in that dreamscape, then I'm living a life where I'm like moving every few months, because I swear every single time I have those dreams there, I have a different house that I live in.
But see, so I do too, but the the house looks different. It's constantly different. And sometimes it's an apartment, sometimes it's like a warehouse. It just shifts, but it's always mine. And so when I'm in it, I notice that it's different, but it doesn't necessarily have this vibe like I've moved. It's somehow the dreamscape has changed around my idea of it.
It's like
No, I've definitely I've had dreams where I actually was in the process of moving.
Okay. Okay, well, that would answer that.
It's almost like
yeah. In fact, one of them recently was. I'm sorry.
It's almost like the house is vaguely familiar, or the place.
Yes. Yes.
And it's like almost your house, but I mean, that's how I dream too. So that's pretty weird.
Well, in mine, like I've had ones where I was just recently moved, and like I had one where I was in a cabin and I just recently moved because there was like boxes everywhere, and I was like thinking that I was like, oh, I have to settle into this new place. And then I had one somewhat recently of I was younger in it and still living with my dad and my sister, and we had moved to a haunted house that was haunted by the ghosts of my grandparents. So
Ooh, we want to hear about that.
Well, let me do a quick search and see if I can find it in my spreadsheet, and I can just read it to you.
This is what I'm talking about. Vanessa is set up. So, also, these are grandparents that you remember in your life, correct?
Yeah, some of them, and some of them I just know because I have my dream journal.
So you didn't know them in life?
Do what? I'm sorry.
In
I think
so
I was reading the screen and trying to talk at the same time, and I think I got mixed up.
so these grandparents you're talking about with their house that's
Oh,
haunted,
no, yeah, no, it's definitely my real grandparents.
but and
Sorry.
do you remember them? Like you had a relationship with them?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Actually, the grandmother that read me that ghost story growing up was the one that was in the dream. I just realized how weird that is.
Girl, you're tickling me.
Okay. Dreamed that my dad, my sister, and I moved into a big house with lots of doors that was known to be haunted, and every few nights the activity would pick up. This took place in an alternate past where we were younger. We spent the day watching TV, which was an old tube TV for some reason, and everything seemed normal. Then we went into bed, and though my sister was scared, so she insisted on sleeping in the same room that I was in and was carrying a flashlight, which was a blue flashlight. In the night, all of a sudden, we were woken up by a door sound. In the room we were in, the closet door had opened, only it opened to a small set of stairs down into a strange basement hallway, where we got up and looked in it with the flashlight. Another door in the hallway opened. Then we had the idea of looking at the room with the video camera connected to the TV. At first, the picture seemed normal. Then, for a few moments, it seemed as if the recording of my late grandparents in the same room at the same spot we were pointing the camera at, but all the lights were on, and my grandma was standing there doing the ironing, and my grandpa was sat in a big chair which wasn't in the room anymore. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it went away, and the door shut in the basement hallway, startling us. I shut the door. Oh, the door at the end of the hallway shut, startling us. Then I shut the door going into this basement and said to my sister that I expect this kind of thing to be a normal occurrence in this haunted house. Then I had another dream where I was watching a documentary about oh gosh, okay, I'm not going to read that part.
So, all right.
It's unrelated.
So when you tell this dream from writing it down, and I do commend you in how good you are at recording these, does it spark the memory of the dream? Are you able to recall
Yeah,
it?
definitely. I can picture the room, I can picture the hallway, I can picture the video. I
So
can
this
picture the
house,
weirdness of the video because it looked like they were staring right at us through the screen.
what was the mood?
Creepy. But
Even though
also a
it was
bit like of like intrigue, like
mhm.
curiosity, I guess.
When you see your grandparents in it, though, it sounds like you love them.
Yeah, we had a bit of a uh definitely I was close to them when I was younger. But as I got older and I started getting more and more weird, it tended to put a rift between us, and so like I didn't the last few years before they died, I had not even visited them, and like except at the well, like my grandmother, like I had not even visited her since my grandpa had died because it was like that uncomfortable. So
So when you encounter them in the dream, was there any kind of emotional stuff attached to it? Was this the
a
first time
lot, yeah,
it and
definitely a lot.
what was that mood like?
Oh gosh, fear, worry, confusion, intrigue, also sadness. a whole big soup of emotions.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's this distance. This is something that I see over and over again. So with this, before either of them died, did you have any premonition of them dying? Or were they having long drawn out deaths, or did you dream of it? Did it come to you in a dream, or was it just totally a surprise?
It wasn't a surprise because, for one thing, they were both in pretty poor health by that point. But another thing is, after my mom died, like, you could tell they had kind of lost the will to live. So, like, at that point, like, every time I saw them, it was like they were in just more and more poorer health. And when it happened, like, my grandpa, like, he had had heart problems and back problems for years and years and years. And so, like, when he finally died, it was not exactly a surprise. And
Hmm.
then my grandmother, she had like, her spine had pretty much collapsed from arthritis and whatever that other bone thing is that, like, she had like
Osteoporosis.
that one.
Yeah.
She had his spine had pretty much collapsed. So like when she died from having fallen and basically never recovered.
Did
So
so?
it
Did
wasn't
you?
exactly a surprise. It was kind of a, well, we saw this coming. It was kind of an inevitability coming. Like,
Did you have any dream experiences when they died? Like, did they show up? Did you have a premonition right around the time they actually passed?
I don't remember anything specific with them. I just kind of, I knew it was about time for that to happen. It was just kind of a matter of time kind of thing.
Okay. What about, and so you have one sibling, your sister?
Um yes. Though speaking of that, my dad's side of the family, when my grandpa died recently, I had in the summer ahead of time predicted within a month his actual date of death.
Oh, wow. How did you get to that date?
Tarot.
Oh, I love this.
I
And
had done
it
my
was
tarot for like what was coming up for the next, like, 6 months, and there was like the death card, and then followed by like a card that was like related to like mourning, and it was just like, oh, hello. So like I wrote it down, and I remember the day he died, I went and deleted the prediction because I didn't want to like turn his death into like me like gloating at my tarot or whatever. So
yeah. But still,
went
that's really,
any record of it. So, but I definitely did predict when my grandpa was going to die within a month. I think I had said he was going to die like the next month after when he did or something.
did what deck was that? What deck do you use, by the way?
Thoth.
Yeah, I think I remember you talking about that in the
I have
server.
quite a few decks, but that's the one I use most often. It's so intuitive and visceral and full of imagery, and I feel like Crowley definitely got it right.
Yeah, and at this point, it really is a classic. It almost surpasses the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which was the classic.
Could never get that one to play nice for me. It felt like something was off. The only one that has come close to me for how intuitive the Thoth is the Golden Dawn Tarot.
Yeah,
That's
that's a
like a
great
close
deck too.
second.
Yeah. I really love my go-to every day for every day is the alchemical deck. It's my favorite,
I've
favorite,
not used that
favorite.
one.
I
I just
love
picked
it.
up the Demon Tarot yesterday.
I don't even know about it, so I need to know about that. What Jerry will get on that, I'm sure. Okay, so can we come back here and talk about your mother for a minute? You gave us some, she passed, so you're in the dead parent club.
Yeah, that sucked.
I'm with you. My mom was the person I love the most on this planet. It's for people that love, some people just don't have close relationships, but for those of us that do, this is
Oh
devastating.
yeah, my mom, like anytime. I felt any kind of emotion, I was always calling her. So
Yeah. I'm
when she
sorry. I'm
passed,
sorry about that.
it was like somebody had taken, like, ripped out all my intestines and threw them down the hallway or something. Like,
Yes, I hear you.
it was
When?
awful.
How long
Honestly,
ago?
I still haven't quite recovered. Like, I'll have days where I just get really depressed and start crying about it still.
Oh, darling. How long's it been?
It's been about 4 years.
Oh, it's still early.
And
It's
of course, in true universe laughing at me form, she died April 1st.
oh my god, it's my grandma's birthday too. That's terrible. Did you did you have a dream? Was there any dreams around that time for you with her passing?
That was I had I don't know. I've kind of blocked that period of time from my memory for the most part,
Mhm.
and that was during a time period where I had stopped recording my dreams. So I I can't really answer that.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to know, have you dreamt of her since then though?
Oh yeah, multiple times.
What was the first time you can recall? What was that dream?
I'm not sure, but the one that stands out in my mind is one where she had we were having a post-mortem birthday for actually, let me just see if it's in my thing and I can read it.
Excellent.
Is this the one? Just do a search.
Bum 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 bum.
I wish there was a better way to search.
Do-do-do-do-do-do. There is. You need to put tags on all your photos or whatever. Your file.
It's a spreadsheet.
Do a
Like, I'm searching for keywords, but I'm trying to remember.
grep.
What is that?
General regular expression processor. It's a Linux utility. It will search for strings within files and whatnot over all your.
I'm using LibreOffice.
Oh well, that's your problem. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's what I used to.
This looks right. Hold on. I think I might have just.
Yay for that. We don't mind a little pause. Jerry, we should learn doo-wop together for these moments.
Barbershop Quartet.
Yes. The thing is, I go low too. We both go low.
I can sing a falsetto.
How can you?
Oh, what a night.
Late
I can't sing that loud
December.
anymore.
I don't know the words.
Well,
That
this
high-
isn't the one I was looking for, but it's certainly an interesting one. So let me read this instead.
All right, give it to us.
I dreamed we were moving from the old house, and I was riding my old red bike down the hill, but one of the pegs was missing. When I got a text from my dad wanting to know if I wanted to see a teddy bear he had found in the stuff. What? Oh, found in the stuff that was named Fluffy. I said yes and rode my bike home. The house was a mess from moving. A couple people were there sitting on the couch, apparently taking a break from helping with the move. My dad's friend told me to text my dad and ask him if he got the message with the picture of the silver bear. I tried to text, but my phone stopped working. Then I started looking for my dad or for the bear, only to find my mom in the hallway, freaking out because the bedroom kept getting put back when she left it. I went in and felt a spirit presence in the room. So I said to the spirits they had better undo whatever they had just did, and took my mom back into the hall and give them time to do it. They didn't, so I went back in the room and started doing a banishing incantation, punctuated by hitting the bed with my right hand. Then I woke up.
Oh, wow. That's powerful. So, and you remember this dream, right?
I remember parts of it. Like, I
Again,
remember the like hitting the bed, but I don't remember the part about like being in the hallway and looking for the bear.
what was the general mood for you, having your mom in it and all this? And then, of course,
Um,
going back in and doing
and
that.
this one, it was like normalized, like like she had never died.
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
really mad at the spirits.
So, in general, what is your relationship like with your mom now through the dream portal?
um, she shows up here and there, and it's usually weird stuff happening, but like it's hard to really get a read on it. Almost as if she's just kind of watching me. That sounds weird when I say it, but
Is there a sense that time's moving on with both of you, or is there, like, what's the sense of movement? I mean, clearly it's been 4 years or so, and do you get emotional when you see her in dreams still?
well, the thing is, most of the time when she shows up in dreams, it's like as if she had never died.
Mm-hmm. Well,
It's kind of hard to
because
explain. The
yeah.
one I was trying to find, I'll just describe what I remember of it. We were at the old house that I had grown up in,
Mm-hmm.
and which, by the way, when I have dreams where relatives are involved, it's always like an alternate reality version of this world. So there's like the separate one where I'm like a different me in a different reality, and then there's the ones where I dream about stuff that actually happened.
Okay.
Um, but like an alternate reality version of it. And so like in this one, I was at the old house, that like my childhood home, and there was like some sort of party going on that my parents were throwing, which was kind of a normal thing to have happen at that place. And I went into the other room to see my mom, and she was there, but she had a box over her head with like um with like clear plastic over it so she could see out.
Mm-hmm.
And it said on it had like a warning message on it that says, "Do not remove. This keeps the disease of death from getting out."
Oh my God. Wow.
And like I remember seeing her, and then I just woke up crying. Like that's all I remember. I know there was more to that dream, which is why I was trying to find it, but like that imagery is just like burned into my mind of like the box that said, "Do not remove. This keeps the disease of death from getting out."
That should be a painting, by the way. That image is so intense that it really would be an amazing painting.
I should
So,
draw it.
I think you should.
I'm not very good at painting, but I've definitely have an art book where I do drawings.
Yeah, I know you've
Not
posted.
good, but have I?
Yes,
I don't
yes,
even
you have.
remember.
And everyone always says that about their stuff. They either say I'm not good or they overboast, and it's like we can all do this. So that that's intriguing to me. Is so what's not so unusual for me is that there's a barrier. What's unusual is that there was that note and it was just over her head. And you woke up crying. How long after she had passed do you think that dream happened?
I'm not sure. That's why I was trying to find the dream entry. I have a really, really garbage sense of time.
I did
My
too.
sense of time is practically non-existent.
I almost feel like it's nerve of me to ask about timelines with people because I don't even know when my birthday is. Usually other
I
people.
wear this on a near constant basis, my smartwatch, because I use Google Calendar to keep my life from falling into a complete bunch of nonsense.
Ooh, girl, all hail the AI. It's a
And
joke. It's a current joke, the AI.
And I use a sleep app, which is part of why I have such an extensive dream record. Is like my app is set so it will not stop the alarm until I enter my dream.
When you first logged into the server, we did a lot of chit chat back and forth on that app because you were posting directly from it and how it monitored this stuff. And I'm deeply fascinated by it, and I'm also in a way kind of repelled by it too because I just don't know what I trust. But looking at it through the lens of you posting and seeing the results you get and the actual clarity of detail is astonishing. It really is. I mean, it makes, especially for someone who's really serious about dreams, it's, at some point I wonder, will I cave and do that? So,
Well, it's simply this. If I didn't have this app, I would not be recording anything or I'd be recording after I've been already through half my day because in the morning I am like a zombie. And unless I have something to force me to do something, I'm not going to do it. And a lot of times I forget to even do basic things when I'm getting ready in the morning because I'm just not awake until I've had my coffee. So,
right.
yeah, this app is 100% the reason why I have anything.
And that is, I mean, that's saying a lot, especially since I see the results of it, which are astonishing. So, this experience, so you have the mom and you have the grandparents. Do you experience other people that have passed in the dreamscape that you know?
Yeah, actually, my grandparents, part of what made that one dream with the haunted house so creepy is because that was the second time they had shown up in a dream. Um, and around that same time frame. There was another dream. I'm not even going to try to search for it. Well, actually, the search term should be pretty easy. Hold on, because I don't think I've dreamed about that subject. Okay, yep, here we go. Um, Yep, okay. Dreamed I had joined the OTO and began initiating into Thelema. Was staying at my parents' place for some reason. My grandparents on my mom's side were staying there too for whatever reason. I knew they and my mom were already dead in the dream, but they were alive in the dream nonetheless. At some point, my mom got really nosy and started getting into my Thelema stuff. She wouldn't leave me alone about the fact that the Liber Alvel Legis isn't a Christian document and I kept trying to explain that I hadn't been Christian in years, but then my grandparents and father got involved, so I slipped away and spent the night in a hotel that looked like it had been recently renovated. Somehow my parents got into that place too and wasn't bothering me, but were bothering everyone on that level. Luckily, the man next door was also thelemic and got really annoyed and just kicked them out for causing a ruckus. The hotel smelled strong of candle smell. I tried to sleep through the night at the hotel but couldn't sleep and ended up astral projecting in the dream instead. The man
Oh,
turned out to be a thelemic priest and he helped me with the karmic mess my family had left behind.
oh my, that's intense. So I love the idea of you're in the dream and you astral project out within the dream. This
And met
is
him
yes, and
doing the
that
same from the 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 hotel next door.
which is remarkable. And then you talk about karmic stuff and the residue. So, on that note, what are your thoughts on how that all plays into this existence we're having? Do you have a
Oh, I
sense?
definitely think that's a thing, but I don't think it's a moralistic thing in the way that most people think of it. I think it's more to do with like cause and effect and relationships with people and their spirits, even across lifetimes.
Could you elaborate on that a little more?
Well, I don't think it's like, a list of good things and bad things and you have to like make up for it or whether. I think that kind of like moralism is mostly a projection from the Zoroastrian
Yes.
current. and
Yes.
not really something inherent in the universe, because I've never really experienced the universe in that way. I feel like that's something we project onto it to try and like make more sense of it than is really there. I think it's probably more of a case of like in the grand scheme of things, like the relationships with different people's spirits throughout like multiple recurring lifetimes, and like trying to make up for like past harms that are coming out through family lines, and manifesting in the world through, how, past events have repercussions far into the future, even after everything related to that event has stopped. So like,
That's like a
for
retro
example,
causality type of thing, right?
yeah, like for example, the Romans haven't been occupying Celtic lands for a long time, but yet their influence and the damage that they did during that time is clearly still affecting Europe, because I mean, Europe is essentially obsessed with the Roman Empire,
Mm-hmm.
even into this day. Even though like everything that directly related to that trauma is gone, that ancestral trauma still reverberates into the current
And plus, the
time
Vatican
frame.
rules the world right now, so.
Which is true. It's still looping round. So
Well, the Vatican is the Roman Empire, really. I mean, the Roman
yes,
Empire
Yeah.
turned into the Vatican.
yes,
I mean,
yes.
the whole reason they made everybody convert was because they exploited the military power that they had from being the Roman Empire.
Oh shit, I was muted. What the hell? So okay, so this dream, astral projection within the dream. Have you? So I want while we're on this particular dream, have you astral projected just general OBE?
No, except for those things that I described about like falling into the abyss. I'm convinced that was probably a form of astral projection, but um
Right,
no,
but
like
nothing.
I have tried like crazy, and it just does not want to happen.
So when you get actually lucid, where you're awake, and I can't remember what level that is. That's level 4.
Like when that happens, it's still within the dreamscape. Like it's 100% a part of the dream.
Right, you're level 4. That awakeness.
Yeah, that like I'm there, I'm in the dream, but like the narrative is still playing out around me, and
How
I'm
much
just
control do you have at that level?
the same amount that I have in this waking state.
And so so back to this dream we're talking about, where you are astral projecting, but from the dream. This layering is awesome.
That's
What
happened
was
more than once to me too.
so this is not uncommon for you to astral project
Um,
from within the
I've only
dream.
I've only had it happen a few times, but every single time it's somehow involved like prominent occultists being involved in it some way. Either like somebody that's like invented for the dream, like that Thelemic priest, which I don't even think that's a thing in Thelema. But, and the other one, it was Gordon White that showed up. So
Well, love Gordon. That's awesome. So can you give us a little idea of what the feel of doing that within the dream was like, though? Can
it was like I was a ghost essentially. Like I was there, but I could like walk through things, and but some things were solid, but some things weren't, and there would sometimes be spirits in the area, like walking around doing stuff.
it okay, and so in in the theme of this, how often do you deal with things that you would consider spirits or others that are not up here in the higher levels of the streaming, the more awareness of your
So,
dreams
are you talking in real life or in the context of dreams?
in the context of dreams?
It seems to be a pretty regular occurrence, but then again, it's a pretty regular occurrence in my waking life, so that doesn't really.
Do
How much of
you,
that is just my waking life bleeding into it? It's hard to say.
well, and that's the thing. I mean, that's my big thing here with all this is what's really real.
Is this
These
the real life?
oh right? Yes, queen. So
After those, which that wake up, wake up, wake up in the dream, wake up in the dream over and over again thing has happened more than once, and in one of the times I actually tried to like test it to see if I was awake by like putting my hand in a candle, and I burned myself, and then I woke up again. So I was just like, at that point, like I tried every single trick that they tell you to do to become lucid to like see if
mhm.
you're dreaming or not, and none of them worked. All of them worked exactly like how that normally happens. So like this was actually a few weeks later after the first one, and it was at the same house. Go figure. Like I'm at the same friend's place. Um, and so like I've come to the conclusion that the only difference is that we are focused in this one, but that when we're in the other one, we think that's the waking world and have a completely different set of memories.
Yeah, I mean, it's so tangled, especially when we're talking about this kind of onion experience where it's just layer after layer, which clearly you really have. Also, again, you're not a person that does any kind of substance that alters your sense of, no psychedelics,
Yeah, I've
other
always
than
had the kind of feeling that that cheapens it in some way.
who knows? Who knows what's what with that? But I think it gives it lends a weight in the fact that you're coming on. You have these are extraordinary. Dream
Ugh,
with
deja vu.
Yeah, I've already had one tonight. So these
I just
dreams
had my
within
third.
dreams within dreams with you, and the fact that you are very vanilla, as you said, it gives it a certain gravity, is what I want to say, Vanessa, that makes it's easier to pin a little more importance on it, I suppose. Uh, so with this, I don't know, since you just said the deja vu, how do you think deja vu is tying into this whole narrative of life and dreaming within dreams and
Well,
all
I
that's
don't.
going on?
Well, I know I just said it, but actually, I don't think deja vu is a thing. I think it's all deja vu.
Right. Not a lot of people are familiar with that, right?
Because multiple times I've had deja vu and then looked back through my dream database and was like, "Oh, I dreamed that. I just forgot that I had dreamed that."
Absolutely. Mine are almost 100% that as well. So,
And so
but
I've come like it's such a consistent thing that I've become convinced that there's no such thing as deja vu. It's all deja vu.
how do you think that plays into all this, though? What is the
The jury's
function
still
of
out
it?
on that one. I'm still trying to figure that one out. I have no idea because it's always like the most mundane, silly nonsense that seems to be the thing. Like I'll dream of watching a film and then I'll watch the film and then I'll go back and realize, oh, I dreamed watching, this part of this film. Like why is that? And it's like the most mundane scene or whatever. Or it'll be like just walking down a hallway and turning left and like what?
Yeah,
What?
yeah,
How is that in any way important? But
they're like almost always mundane, but I think because there's a sense of recurrence and maybe the Nietzschean sense, there's something super significant about it.
I haven't actually read Nietzsche
Ooh, I suggest it. So, all
because
right,
hostility has always put me off.
I think it's for me because I just like to dive into a lot of different stuff. I I just I'm able to do it. I don't know why. It's same with like
I don't know.
really
I
some of
still
the
need to read them.
crazy Christians I'll listen to just to understand what they're saying. And these are people that I'm literally everything they think is evil. You know, like everything they think is evil, I represent. And yeah, I'm listening to some of them to see what's going on with an open mind. So it's just how I am. Anyway, so the deja reve, the deja experience in life within death, how is what is your sense of consciousness and how we pin it into the nowness? So the nowness of a dream, the nowness of other states of consciousness. What do you think all this is? What's this experience we are having in general?
Well, I'm going to start by with the Gordonism. I don't think we have time right.
Yeah.
I think our idea of what time is wrong. But I'm not entirely sure, honestly. I'm still working on that. I have things that I definitely think are more true than others, but I can't really say for certain because part of it is I'm kind of like Philip K. Dick in that, like, ask me 2 weeks from now and I'll have a different answer. So
Oh yeah. I find open-minded people are like that. I mean, Jerry and I are constantly adding as new stuff comes in, we're, you know,
so
the
I don't like to try and pin myself down to one idea or another. I just kind of I'm more interested in what I'm doing rather than like what I think is going on, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just talking to Crypto Mystic in chat about trying to keep up with all the changes to our reality lately, or what seemed to be. So
Right.
I get that.
I think that's mostly the media just spinning narratives because when you really look at it from like a scale, I mean, I'm obsessed with ancient Mesopotamia, and I am constantly surprised by how little has actually changed in the grand scheme of things. How much of that material is still as valid today as it was ever.
Maybe. But I think it's all it's all narrative. Everything is narratives, you know, to some degree. I'm just the scientific ones, though, they keep coming up with new discoveries, or things aren't the way they thought they were. It's like
I've kind of like tuned out of all that stuff because so much of it is rediscovering stuff that people in the past already knew anyways, that stuff that we had just discarded because we decided it was nonsense, and then it's like, oh wait, no, that's actually a thing. So I've just kind of tuned out of all of that. I've blocked most of the media sites from showing up on my computer and on my electronic devices, and I just mostly focus on the people around me because I've decided all that stuff is just noise.
Well, looping, and that's what we've been talking about here. I'm sure you've heard us talking about that. Is the fact that, first of all, there seems to be a sense of time looping that's going on. Like, it doesn't seem like there's anything new anyway. And all roads do. You and I had talked about this, Vanessa, early on about how so much of it does lead back to Mesopotamia. So much points back to this early documentation that we can now see and understand, especially with the way the translations are coming out in more recent times, because they've changed since, say, I have a book on Mesopotamia from the 50s, and I should pull that out. I was looking for it the other day. It's
Well,
the
one of the things
translations of those cuneiforms are different than they are now. I mean,
well, I've actually kept up with the scholarship on that, and I've
Yeah.
actually I have some really old books on Mesopotamia. I have some really new ones, but I actually have like all of the weird technical like papers on like why and where and wherefore and all that sort of stuff. And the biggest thing is a lot of the early documents was just, okay, they saw some stuff. They had like, oh, we know what that sign means, that sign means. We don't know what that sign means, so let's just make something up as a placeholder. And then they would just like, say that with like an asterisk. And like, so the more recent stuff is just simply we have more data.
So what do you see? So in that narrative, let's walk down that line for a minute. First of all, what leads you back to Mesopotamia? How'd you get there?
Are you an Anunnaki?
Are you an Anunnaki?
Well, first of all, let's correct your pronunciation. It's Anuna Kai, because it's
Jerry, you
Anu,
just got checked.
the god of the sky.
I
And
don't
then
believe they're real, so it doesn't matter.
Nuna. Anu is the god of the sky, then
Yes.
Nuna, and then Kai, the goddess of the earth. So it's like actually the princely offspring of An and Kai. So
Talk about Apophis, if you know anything.
is that the snake thing that goes around the egg? I only tangentially familiar through Crowley.
I'll have
I
to look
don't
in
know
those.
very much.
I didn't know that the Crowley talked about Apophis.
Yeah, I think he talks about it in the Book of Lies a little bit.
I wanted also to add, you were talking about the inception type dreams within dreams thing. I had heard someone else today, I think it was Lisa Harrison, talking about people in her groups have recently been having a lot of those. Like it's trending up, the number of them. I don't know if that means anything to you.
Well, mine specifically was like perfectly timed with my magic work at the time, because I was specifically working with Namu, which is the Sumerian name for Tiamat.
Mm-hmm.
That was my nickname when I was a teenager.
Namu? Namu?
Namu.
Interesting. It's Nammu.
I only had one M.
But still, I mean,
I know it's weird.
It's a weird sync there.
Anyways, so at that time, like I had got really, really into the Book of Lies, and I got really into the concept of non-existence and nothingness. And that kind of happened around the same time, and it was actually leading up to my big crazy Tiamat experience.
Nish?
Did we lose people?
I don't know.
No, I'm listening. I thought you were going further.
Me too.
Oh, I was I didn't know that. Okay. You want me to explain the whole thing?
No. I forgot the question that we came in on. So it's all good. I'll listen to the other one.
It's kind of a topic
I'll stop
to itself,
asking
really.
questions. I'm sorry.
No, it all ties together here. So back into what's going on now. We can't untie this from the past, and I think you've made that very clear, which is what I'm getting at, and how what we're calling this looping. And so I'm curious about the connecting thread of the early narratives, especially since we've seen from Sumer and all this. I'm
gonna get really, really nerdy.
And okay, how did I say it?
Call it bootstrapping, because it reminds me of how a computer boots up.
Bootstrapping.
You load up, the basic utilities, the BIOS or the EFI, and then you load the bootloader, and then you load it in layers, and you build on top of that like foundation. And so our culture has kind of been built on that foundation, and while we don't necessarily pay much attention to what it's doing down there, it's still there and influencing us, and all of our ideas about what's going on and how culture works and stuff builds off of these ideas that become like popular, and it just becomes accepted. And we, outside of people who come in and shake things up like Crowley did, like for the most part it's just people operating on impulse, operating on everything that came before, using the tools that their grandfather built, kind of thing.
Right. So is this somehow, how there's all this chatter about like genetic memory, right?
I definitely, I don't know if I would say genetic, but I definitely think familial lines are an important thing, because I've had quite a few like my magic work has pushed me towards like learning about like my Celtic heritage and stuff. And I have not even, and it led me to like tracing my heritage back and figuring out my grandparents were
Yeah.
and stuff.
That
And
ancestral digging in your ancestry and stuff like that is real powerful for your magic. But that's still
yeah,
it's still genetic.
yeah, but I think it's not just like what's literally in your DNA, but also people that influenced those people and what was going on in their lives and who they met in their lives. So like I think of my family as not just being the people I'm genetically related to, but the people who I'm relationally related to. So anyone who is influential to me, I consider it just as much my ancestor as the people whose genetics went into my. Because, like, for example, like there was this family that were, for all intents and purposes, my godparents. And I grew up with their daughter was born around the same time as I was, and we grew up together and stuff. And in a lot of ways, I feel like their family is as much my family as they are, or as my like blood relatives, because we they were just as influential and like took up almost like I know who their family is, I know who their grandparents are, like I I we were like kind of together growing up. Like so I think of them as like my second family, and I feel like it's not really necessarily a blood or genetic thing, but so much as like a relational thing. Like who are the people that influenced you and who are the people that influenced them, and like all the way up the chain.
I'm with that 100%. That's why I call, like, I have this woman that had just passed. It's been 3 years now, I think. Oh, geez, I can't believe the time. And I called her my second mother. I was completely influenced by her in a million and one ways. I can't separate her influence on my life out. And in many ways, she was more influential on my life than my real mother, whom we already know it was the great goddess to me. There was no one I felt actually closer to. So I'm with you. I also think that we're more than our genetics. So that only takes that kind of that anger
Well,
so far.
also the simple fact that our genetics can change in response to our lives kind of really speaks to me that it's more about what we experience and who we come in contact with and who influences us and all that kind of stuff than anything to do with like the actual genetic code and bloodlines as a concept for like heritage. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. It's like
Well, you're talking magic
who are
now.
your
I mean,
spirit
this is
group
mind
kind of
stuff,
thing.
right? This is mind stuff, and I
Spirit
think,
bloodlines versus like physical bloodlines, I guess is what I'm
yes,
trying to get at.
absolutely. Of course, you speak like a magician, and that's seriously. So, all right. So where I want to go with this line of questioning with you in particular is in your dream world, in your parent dream world, because I think this is all a dream world. Do you have narratives that play out from the Sumer stuff? And
Oh
of
yeah,
course, they
I've
can
had a
take on,
few,
give us some of that stuff.
and I'm toying with the idea that it might be a past life memory that surfaced, but I can't really say for certain. There's no way of verifying it, so I've just kind
Hmm.
of left it as maybe, like put a big question mark on it. And I have a couple. There's one where I am in a temple and there's a statue of Inanna on an altar, like with all these sort of like offerings and accoutrements and stuff, and I'm with someone else, and I don't look like this at all. I look like someone from the Middle East, and I'm wearing kind of like almost like a belly dancer outfit, and it's blue like cyan, and the person next to me is that's in like light green, and we like kneel before the altar and then stand up, and then we go to like tending to the statue, and I'm like pouring out a like pitcher of perfume, and she's like doing something else. I wasn't really paying attention. And that's the first dream/experience thing. And the other one was I was in some sort of like lounge or like music hall or bar or something, and I'm like standing up in the corner with someone who in this experience I knew to be my husband, which I don't even date men in this life, so and I'm looking out at the crowd, and they're all like kind of sat down on the ground, and there's like this table that's made of like stone. I think there's like a picture on it or something, and everyone's just kind of looking up at me, and I'm singing, and the guy is like playing drums next to me, and and another or a guy to my right is playing drums, and the guy to my left, who in this I knew to be my husband, was playing a gishgudi, which is a type of like almost like a cross between a sitar and a lute
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing, like almost like a historical guitar, but with 3 strings, and he's playing that, and I'm singing some sort of hymn, and that's that one. So
And did
very,
these
very short. Both of them were like half a minute long, if that.
did these surface, or I don't want to say surface, but that's how these things feel to me sometimes. Did they come forth after you had started digging into this material or before?
After.
So,
Leading
okay,
up to me getting involved in Sumerian stuff, I had a few experiences relating to specifically Anana. I mean, there's a reason I have her symbol on my neck,
yeah.
around my neck as a necklace.
I guess that's what I was interested in hearing was, how did the road take you back?
Well, so I don't really consider. I know in the intro thing it said Wiccan. I should probably fix that because, in that document, because I don't really consider myself Wiccan anymore. I've kind of let that go. But I started off with Wicca definitely, um, and I was working through Cunningham's material, and at
Mm-hmm.
some point it like says that you need to find your patron god and goddess, and I was doing the steps that it recommends, and Anana came through in a big way, and I became like obsessed with her and started like reading everything I could get my hands on about her, and that kind of ballooned out into learning everything I could about ancient Mesopotamia and especially the Sumerians. And I mean that has continued to this day. I mean, I just got a new book of Mesopotamian incantations the other day.
How long ago was that?
I want to say like a year and a half or so. It was actually somewhat recent.
I recently heard a lecture, and this person was talking about Nana as being connected to Kali and Isis. It's the same consciousness, same entity.
I don't know about that. That seems more tenuous to me than like Asherah and Aphrodite and that
There
that
may be
whole
others.
path.
It was just the two that she brought up. It was more
Hmm.
that a negative female energy consciousness type of thing.
I don't think of her as negative at all. I think of her
Nor
as
do I.
empowered.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I
The
saw
idea of
that,
her being
Jerry.
negative definitely feels like something projected onto her from a modern perspective.
It's
Well,
possible.
that happens with Kali, also. There's a lot of
I don't know very much about her. I don't really know that much about Hindu deities in general. Though I did have an experience with Durga
Mhm.
pretty early on.
Durga.
Around the same time I started, huh?
I said
What?
Durga. Never mind. It's a joke.
Jerry.
Okay.
We joke.
The problem is the stuff that I would joke about you've probably never heard of. So, anyways, around the same time that I was having those experiences with Nana, I had an experience that I've now come to realize was Durga. I originally thought she was Inanna, because she came through in a way that made me think she was Inanna, and she had a simple message for me, which was just simply live your thelema.
Huh. That's interesting.
which is where I started getting interested in Thelema, because I was not that interested before that.
So in the dreamscape as you have it now, which I see and read pretty much daily, how, how do you parse through? How do I want to ask this question? Uh, hmm. I'm actually at a loss for how I want to. I can see what I want to ask, and I can't parse through the words. So it's relating back to the Mesopotamian stuff. I'm trying to tie this into so here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to tie this into ideas of reincarnation and where you are now on this path. I asked you about reincarnation earlier, but we take this back to
I've
Mesopotamia. Are you
Well, let
following
me
me?
actually just, yeah, I get what you're trying to say. And let me just say, I'm not sure, but I've had multiple people that don't even really know me very well, accuse me of being a reincarnation of Enheduanna, who was a Sumerian priestess and also the first um, poet who we know who she was, like who actually wrote the poems, because she was the first one to actually sign her work.
And that does fit seeming to know what I know about you as well. There's something there. Just
I've
this
had
little
multiple
bit.
people like interested in ancient Sumerian stuff and working with that current read my hymns and accuse me of being a reincarnation. Because
And how do
apparently my
you
writing
feel about
style is
that?
similar to hers.
So Vanessa,
I'm
how
not
do you
really sure
like
what to make of it.
is
It's kind of a
there
cool idea, but I don't really know. I'm not convinced one way or another. I've kind of learned to not try to read too far into things and just kind of go with whatever happens and let it unfold, because it's going to unfold at whatever pace it wants to. And if I try to force it, I'm just going to be like banging my head against it.
have you is anyone in your family in the military?
um, yes.
So and so I was just wondering like how close in that is. This is like something that
My
fascinates.
dad was former Army and currently works as a civilian contractor for a branch of the military. I'm going to leave it somewhat vague intentionally. I have other family members that have been in the military or are presently in the military.
And so the reason
And
I'm
I used
asking
to work for the Air Force myself as a civilian contractor.
okay, so that ties you in. So what I'm trying to especially there's a lot of as you know in the collective there's a lot of this and I don't know where you stand with it. There's a lot of chatter around. I mean, okay, there's obviously ancient alien stuff out there, but there's a lot of this
Oh,
other stuff. I know. I won't even go there because you that alone, I'm with you. Uh, I want to try and pin this into the idea of dreams and dream memory and dream experiences through through possible military stuff. And in particular, I'm really interested in all the stuff that happened in 1947 with Parsons and the Black Dahlia and
yeah.
Roswell. You know where I'm going. And so it's
I
interesting,
love Parsons.
right? Right. This is
His
significant.
Liber 49 was a huge, like when I started digging into Thelema, that was the thing I was drawn to first and foremost and most significantly.
Well, give us some of your ideas on all that. And I'm there's a tie-in here with the ancient world, as you must know.
Well, to put it simply, I am convinced that Liber 49 was Inanna,
Hmm.
that she was on the other end of that, like she was the voice for that. And to put it simply, Inanna in the ancient myths was the Prometheus character. There's a myth, Inanna and Enki, where she steals the Mies which is a Sumerian word that isn't really translatable. In some cases, it means sacred scrolls. Sometimes it means, well, in tablets, sacred tablets. Sometimes it means like information, and sometimes it's just like concepts in a like nebulous sense. It's really difficult to nail down. But she stole them from the other gods, and by getting Inky drunk, like completely shit-faced, and stole them and took them to and gave them to humanity. And that was basically the seeds of civilization. So her as the one who spurs technological development is a motif that's very strong in the Mesopotamian texts. And then we see that playing out like to a T in Parsons' life.
You can keep elaborating.
And so, I mean, one thing that I've recently discovered that ties into all this is that the Jehovah's Witnesses predicted Crowley.
Okay, that's new to me. What?
The date
What?
they gave. Okay, so the date that they gave for when Jesus was supposed to take the throne was the year that the guy, one of the guy who basically created the formula for the Golden Dawn and like started it, who had like previously been part of the Rosicrucian order in Anglica. I'm gonna butcher these names. I'm not very good at pronouncing Latin, but the year he took over the Rosicrucian order was the year that they said Jesus would take the throne. And then the year that they said that the time of trouble would end is the year that Crowley decided to turn the OTO into a Thelemic order. So he was preempted by a prophecy that was completely misinterpreted. And then he prophesied the coming of this new Aeon. And then Parsons receives the message from Babylon and promptly creates the space age. So I definitely feel like Inanna was just like, okay, enough. You guys need to do something interesting for a change. Stop fighting over people over stupid desert deities and do something interesting for once. Go to space or something. Gosh, you guys are so boring.
Yeah, this is really super fascinating stuff. So with all this in mind, with the idea of, okay, so with the Parsons stuff in particular, let's rest there for a second. What reverberations, what effect do you think that cause had on the now that we're experiencing if we could make this into a line of time? She's holding
Enough
up her cell
said.
phone, people.
I feel like that's enough said.
Yes, the black mirrors, the modern day black mirrors of magic.
Make great scrying surfaces.
They are completely occult-ish. You know, they're completely magical objects. That
I've definitely used turned off TV screens and stuff as scrying surface.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is, I mean, that's so great. It's so modern witchery, but it's the truth. I have too. I have photos of doing that. Just to show that the reflection is so good and you can scry into it or onto it. Pardon me. I got a little belch there. So with all this, with the Parsons stuff, with this magic stuff, do you see any of this playing out in your current dreams? So we got a sense of the esoteric stuff with meeting so when you're going out of body within the dream and doing that, meeting magical people and priests, are you doing magic within your dreams?
powerful. I've already read a few where I did like incantation stuff.
I mean, like in a conscious sense. So in the stage 4, I think you have it as stage 4.
Yeah, I've definitely had times when I've done like, rituals and stuff. But you said Parsons and this stuff, and it immediately reminded me of this. So let me just read this entry. There was multiple dreams tonight, so I think some of them are kind of weird and stupid, but I think my first dream was a dark dream in a strange arcade. There was a weird story based on a horror version of Skee Ball that incorporated elements of Five Nights at Freddy's. I wasn't really scared, but it weirded me out a little. That dream ended, and when I woke up, I had to use the restroom. The next dream was all about Jack Parsons attending a temple and praying to a Nana, where I was the N, which N is a Sumerian word that means high priestess, and worked attending to a lion statue. Then he received instructions from her that I couldn't hear. That one ended, and I woke up, rolled over, fell back asleep. Third dream, I was getting ready for some kind of lock-in at my dad's church, and there was a kind of reunion thing. I packed a bunch of stuff related to my current spiritual path, and I was really hungry, so I tried to get some food to eat at the restaurants, but they were closed, and the grocery store was low on stock. I finally found some food to pack and found an open Burger King to get a veggie burger. I woke up hungry.
I love the woke up hungry bit.
Suddenly the dream becomes all about food because I'm hungry.
Yeah, well, and that illustrates, it's like the P ones, right? It totally illustrates how connected our biology is with this mind stuff. And that's what I was getting at earlier with what you think is going on overall. Because there certainly we're tethered to these biological suits somehow, and we're having a full immersion experience within this experience of consciousness, so that when I cut myself I hurt. And this can tie over into
I cut
other
myself
state.
in a dream too, though.
Well, and you'd actually already said that with was it a burn? I can't recall what it
Yeah,
was.
I burned myself on a candle because I wanted to see if it hurt.
Yeah. Right. And so like with your mother, when you went in and did that, I guess I wasn't clear that that was actually something that was in your stage 4, that awareness where you went in and did that on the bed and took care of that business for her.
Definitely, I knew what I was doing.
Okay. All right. That's where I like how I like this. Now I can say stage 4, and we've got like we've got a common vernacular here. What do you think's going on then? With all this said, what do you think's going on with the idea of death? How's that playing into all this?
I don't know. I definitely think there's some sort of afterlife, and I have a landscape for what that looks like, but what does that mean in the grand scheme of things? I have no idea.
What's the landscape look like to you?
Oh, okay. So, let's start with the simple fact that the Greek ideas of the afterlife and the Sumerian ideas of the afterlife are a pretty close match when it comes to the description of the landscape. And if you cross-reference the Greek and the Sumerian, you basically fill in the gaps and you have a literal map of what the kingdom of Urkala, as it's said in the Mesopotamian, looks like, which is that there are 2 rivers that come down and branch off and go in a, like, make essentially an island,
Right.
and there's 4 fields, and then in the center is the city. That's a walled city, and there are 7 or 8, depending on version, gates to that city that you have to cross through. And you have to get across the river by interacting with the boatman in some way, either bribing him or pleasing him in some way or whatever. And then inside there is inside of the city there's somewhere is the garden, which has, of course, the fountain of memory and forgetfulness, and the forgetfulness has a tree which has fruit made that is crystal, is like made of crystal.
And what's this? So the the tree of forgetfulness.
The fountain of forgetfulness is coming from like the tree is the centerpiece.
Yeah. And does that play into, I'm not actually fully familiar with that at all. So how does that play into the idea of being wiped of your memory? Forgetfulness
Yeah.
brings,
And in the Eleusinian mysteries, they taught you to make a point of not getting involved in that because people would be there erasing their past life memories in that river, and they say instead of doing that, go and ask the guard that you're thirsty but you want water from the fountain of memory, which to me, that I read that and I parse that as the Abzu from the Sumerian text, the fresh water fountain of wisdom.
and this is one of those little things, like in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. This is like one of those tricks to, it's almost like a trick, like you need to know to ask for the
Oh yeah, definitely.
So the fountain of this is good to know. I'm actually the fountain of memory. I want the fountain of memory. I'm making a note of this. Is there?
Yeah. I definitely want whoever buries me, I want direct instructions to bury me with one of those Eleusinian mystery instruction pages.
I want to get. Will somebody link that in Nox Mente for sure? That this particular info. So because I want to get into that's. I want to get deeper into that. That's what I'm asking. I'm intrigued by this.
I created a Sumerianized version that I've uploaded to my website.
Could you share that with us in the server?
Sure.
You could just link it to your site even, which is fantastic. So in the crystal tree, and that's in the center of the fountain of forgetfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And the fruit,
it's mentioned definitely, it's mentioned vaguely, like offhandedly in some of the Sumerian tablets, but it's specifically referenced in that Eleusinian mystery page.
What of the fruit from that tree?
It says nothing of it in the Greek texts, but in the Mesopotamian texts, it says that it is the fruit with the secret to all sexual prowess. Like it makes you the best sexual person on the face of the planet.
And yet it's being fed from the fountain of forgetfulness.
I never even considered that the two might be related.
and right, and then we're thinking, so sexual, I'm thinking, base chakra, bottom of the tree of life, and which I a lot of times think of as easy ways to be manipulated, and also manipulate. So I'm just making these connections with that, which is why I want to know more. That's what I want to.
I mostly tend to trend away from the Kabbalah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
got really into it at first.
It's.
I think we're having connection problems.
I think it's good to tie.
She was tongue-tied.
You truly.
Oh.
I think it's good to tie things in. So I can't say that I'm worshiping at any altar right now in complete devotion. Let me put it that way.
I've definitely got a statue of Inanna on my altar that I created myself.
Well, I have gone through these stages in my life, but right now it's not that way, and I'm in journeyman mode. So, but this you've given me something really good to get onto. I'm very into that information that we just were talking about, and it's extra juicy because as we're talking about the realm of death, right? And the one of the things that we're all looking at, especially in these very interesting times, is it's always confronting you. Death's always confronting you, no matter what. It's every time we lay down, it's a little death in a way. And so the more we push into these ideas, especially the older they are, and Mesopotamia is very old. Sumer this is like, as far as what we know, these are very old. There's Göbekli Tepe, and there's other stuff coming up too. However, I don't know much about this particular aspect and want to know more. So
I went ahead and dropped the map tablet in there as well, the picture of the map tablet.
What room did you put it in?
The general.
Okay, cool. I think we'll put it somewhere where we can pin it.
It's not going to make a whole lot of sense unless you can read cuneiform, but you can kind of see the general lay of the land.
Yes, and I'm sure I'm going to have questions for you.
I got a question. I just thought of it.
Go, Jerry.
Zachariah Sitchin.
Nutcase.
Okay.
Person who doesn't read and just makes stuff up. Because
and a Freemason.
I didn't even know that, but his stuff is based on intentionally misreading the texts and like just making stuff up.
Would you think that
like,
was partly because,
for example,
okay, carry on.
For example, he points to a symbol for kingship, like a cuneiform symbol for kingship, and he says, "Oh, that's a spaceship. It looks like a spaceship, but we actually know what it is because actually cuneiform signs are based on an earlier pictograph system, so they're essentially all sigils, and we have the origins of them. And no, it's actually a hat, or more specifically, a crown. It's a crown turned on its side." So that's kind of an example of just how much of a nut he is, or just like he's intentionally misrepresenting things to get his narrative across. Also, he keeps calling the Enuma Elish a Sumerian tablet when it's actually a Babylonian tablet written in the Babylonian language, not the Sumerian language.
Yeah, these things are really significant. It's very significant. I often wonder, though, if this is what I was talking about earlier with people that were reading the earlier stuff before before more scholarship came into play, and they just got stuck in that earlier bit of information.
He strikes me as I want to believe so bad that I will read anything into anything to make my preconceived notions the truth.
Yeah. It's a hot topic for
like
sure.
He so desperately wants there to be aliens everywhere that he reads that into everything.
Well, what do you think about aliens?
I think they're well, I'm going to use this word, but I'm going to preface it with explaining that
everything is demons.
I was going to use that word, but I was going to preface that I mean it in the Latin sense, meaning spirits.
Yes.
I think they're spirits of the earth, like from under the earth.
What's under the earth?
Because, like caves and stuff.
Underground, not like underneath the plane, right?
Yeah, like literally like caves and abandoned mine shafts and stuff. Because there are spirits in pretty much every mythology that come from those caves that have similar attributes. And I seem to find that people who have gray experiences tend to also live near the entrance of of either a bunch of mine shafts or some sort of massive cave system, such as the the caves that are in Kentucky.
Yeah, Mammoth
And
Caves.
all over like that. Yeah, Mammoth Cave. I couldn't think of the name, but like that whole cave system like covers that entire half of the United States. And surprise, surprise, a lot of the gray encounters tend to happen from places where those caves are their biggest. So I'm convinced that it's just simply the genus loci of like cave systems, and essentially what in like I think it's Trithemius that it classifies them into like gnomes, sylphs, salamanders, and undine. I think it's essentially the gnomes, the earth spirits, the element of earth. And there are equivalents for all of those in the Sumerian tablets, with the exception of salamanders. There's no fire spirits in the Sumerian tablets, but the equivalent to the gnomes would be the Galah, the equivalent to the undine would be the Udug, and the equivalent to the sylphs would be the Lil.
Man, you're awesome. Is this seriously? You got a depth here that's really inspiring. Do you think that they are interdimensional? Are they physical?
I mean, I think they live in the spirit plane,
So I mean
which is like parallel to our world.
and that's kind of a concept for interdimensional, or is that different to you? The spirit realm
Well,
as opposed to interdimensionality.
I think we've got time wrong. So if we've got time wrong, then we've also got dimensionality wrong, because it's based off of the concept of time, and I think we've got that wrong.
Which
I
is
think,
how we
like,
open this.
to borrow a phrase from the Mothman prophecies, I think it's sideways in time.
Yes. Yeah. I can pull up to that. I have always felt that there was the time thing's bizarre. It's so bizarre to me. I think most people now are talking about how strange time is anyway, where the whole idea of time anyway that we're experiencing is still a theory, by the way. So
Also, to expand on that, I think the whole abduction experience is actually that they're occultists and they're pulling people in to do like spirit binding and stuff.
ooh, girl. So
Because so
what do
much
you
of the
think about
descriptions are like a 1-to-1 matched. I'm like, wait a minute, like, okay, if it was me, if it was a person instead of a alien thing, and it was looking the same way, you'd be saying that they're a witch and they're doing, you know, XYZ occult operation. So like, just because it's from the other side of the veil, that doesn't make it any less the same thing. So
That's really
I
interesting
mean,
because
so often they're described as having a wand. They usually like try to like cloak it and say, oh, it was like some sort of technology thing. But like when you actually listen to the description, no, it's a wand.
Jerry, what are
program-
you saying?
I don't remember. It's interesting, and what it made me think about is that there are websites online and used to be on Etsy and eBay where you could buy spirit attachments, like Creepy Hollows, places like that, where they do spirit bindings. They do spirit bindings to whatever, you know, stones.
Oh, you mean like talismans where they encapsulate it with a spirit?
No, they're more like drawing spirits into these.
Yeah,
things.
like Trithemius with the art of drawing spirits into crystals and stuff.
That's what I think about it, but I don't know what they're really doing.
I thought they were doing into sigils, the ones you're talking about, Jared.
No, they can sell you. They sell spirited. They call them spirited items, like stones or crystals.
Oh yeah, I've done that
one. Yeah. So they also, this is the end of it. They sell these spirit bindings to real people, to live people.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
Which I thought was always odd, right? But that kind of would fall into what you were talking about, because where they might be live people in other dimensions, according to their website. So if there are, say, parallel realities, that would make...
They're the Greys!
Well, that's maybe how we see them, because the frequency shift between our dimension and their dimension, you know, amplifies or whatever, retards the who knows? Who knows? That's just the way
Well, I mean,
maybe
if they're
they want
I
to
mean,
look.
just think about it from just like a pure physical perspective. What thing on Earth has an appearance like the Greys?
I don't know. Nothing.
Cave fish. Cave fish, they have the big eyes to see in the dark, and they
Right,
have
you're
the
right.
pale skin
It's
because
like
they
the
have
Kentucky
no.
goblins.
Well, I think those are Greys. I think it's all the same thing.
I think the grays that people have experiences with are not physical. They cannot become physical. They're never here.
Well, I think, well, yeah, definitely. Like their spirit is being pulled into the ethereal, and that's where everything is happening, and it's like spirit operations, like I would do in a occult ritual.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because the description is like even their outfits. It's like, oh no, that's like straight out of this grimoire. Like, oh, you need this kind of belt and these kind of like bracelets and this kind of headband, and it's like, oh, I know exactly what that outfit is. So it's like if I'm looking at these raw like experiencer accounts and then looking at grimoires, it's like, oh no, I know what that is.
Mm-hmm. So where does if we're looking at within this vein here, what about the orders of, and I guess this brings us into more grimoire tradition anyway, so it brings us forward in time, but the whole angelic order and all that, and playing into, because there seems to be a lot of crossover with the idea, sorry, with demons, aliens. Then we've got the higher orders of seraph and the principalities and all of that. Where do you think all that ties in? And it's specifically in those
Well,
old grimoires of the 1500s.
well, first of all, some of it is plain made up, and we know that for a fact because we know
Mm-hmm.
what it was based on. It was based on like fictional things that were popular at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some of it is based on older stuff, especially old pantheons. They would just rebrand them as demons or rebrand them as angels or rebrand them as saints. So a lot of it is actually just Mesopotamian deities with different outfit on, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and some of it is just don't really know where it comes from. It just kind of pops out of nowhere.
So the stuff that's anomalous, that pops out of nowhere, this is always the stuff that intrigues me the most. Why?
Well, I've
How's
seen some of it come about in my own life. Like I've watched people in their own practice, like they'll come across something, like maybe it's like the genus loci like shows up, and
Mm-hmm.
then they center their practice around it. A good example is Aaron David.
Yes, he's
He
awesome.
had that experience with goat, and that's become a huge center of his practice. But
It's
he
like
doesn't
famous.
attach that to. Well, I mean, he and I are pretty close. So,
I know, I know.
um,
I loved you on. I don't know if you've been on more than once, but I loved the show. I heard you on at least.
so long ago, I was such a different person back then. But yeah, he and me and Kelly are all like talk all the time, constantly. And anyways, so like if he was to write a grimoire, goat would be in it. And it
Hmm.
would just be called Goat, and it would be based on his descriptions of like what his experiences were. So, and it would be included just as matter of factly as anything else. So, but it would have seemed to have essentially come out of nowhere. But that doesn't mean that archetype is new. It just means that, that person was just like, well, I had this experience, this is what I experienced, and I'm not going to brand it with anything. I'm just going to leave it as it is.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that there is at this point. There, to me, there is no new archetype. I don't know. they do seem to just tie back to the older stuff again.
There's
that
tons
whole-
of
That's
new
essentially what I was
archetypes.
trying to say.
Tons of new archetypes. Look at all the superheroes.
No,
Look
but
at
they're
the-
not new,
No,
Jer.
those are so many of those are based on like for example, Thor. I mean, that's literally a deity,
Okay,
and that can trace all the
Man.
way back to
Iron Man.
Damien. Iron Man would be
They may have loose relations to things, but they, in and of themselves, have become their own archetypes that you can draw power from directly without having to
But
know the
I think
background.
I disagree
well,
that they're
here's the thing,
new,
though,
though,
that whole-
Jerry.
Okay.
Well, yeah. For one, like Iron Man definitely strikes me as mercurial. So like I would say he
Oh, that's
connects
the
with
Flash.
Hermes.
That's the Flash.
But all the heroes through the different comics you can derive their specific abilities to old world gods and goddesses.
I'm thinking of Mercury from a magical sense, because he's not about speed, he's about information and access to knowledge and making use of that.
Right. Right. I mean, he's
but
Hermes. I mean, we can just move him
Dove.
through Gemini. I mean, come on.
Prometheus,
I feel like
Lucifer.
there's a set. It's like chess pieces, and we can keep renaming them. I don't think anything new is actually surfacing. I think the archetypes are all ancient and set, like a set of energy, and we can see them in all these old cultures just take on new clothing.
But
And I
also,
think-
I want to add on to that like the whole chaos magic-y, you can make anything into a deity thing. In my experience, that's not really true. There is a potentness to connecting with like historically worshipped deities that you don't get with things that you just pull out of like pop culture and stuff. Like, and that level of ability of like pulling something out of pop culture seems to be on par with created spirits such as like tulpas and stuff. They seem to have about the same level of power.
It's like the table of correspondence with the elements and all this. You're working with all the different elements, and you can mix and match them, but when you start to dissect them down, you can still see the parts that make them up. So they can take on different forms.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah. That's what I'm getting at. That's why I say there's nothing new, but I understand there's a new, the Empress got new clothing, right? Or, I got a new hairdo. So, and who gets at that really well is Neil Gaiman in American Gods. I mean, he does that. I think he really gives us that idea brilliant.
I'm unfamiliar.
It's fantastic. Fantastic. You should get familiar. But I mean, the internet is an archetype in and of itself, and the new age of how the gods have moved into the new age he's really speaking about that. And American Gods, it's just genius. On that note, are there questions, Jerry?
None that I've seen. We've been having a side conversation. 5 minutes. No, I haven't seen any. No.
Did you ask?
I did.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because we're at like over the 2-hour mark already. Jesus.
Oh God.
Jesus.
Easily go for another 5.
I know. Well, I'm super into, so I knew you had this extreme depth on the Sumer stuff. And I did.
Yeah, that's kind of my wheelhouse. I mean, that's pretty much anything that I do occult wise, I translate first into like ancient Mesopotamian stuff and then do it that way.
Yeah, but you're super scholarly.
My wand has cuneiform all over it, and
yeah,
I've got like,
well,
my
okay.
apartment is littered with books on ancient Mesopotamia and stuff.
Right, and you've talked about that in our server, and we had small conversations on it. But you're definitely a scholar in this, and you're one of those people that dives deep, clearly, and gets into the nitty gritty, which I highly respect and bow to. I want to close on this. I want to before, and we'll plug your stuff, of course. But what do you think? And so I already asked this essentially in a million different ways, but is this a dream? Are we having a dream? Is this a dream to you right now?
I don't know. It's that simple. I don't know.
And this is coming from you, who has dreams within dreams within dreams within dreams, where you astral project within dreams. So I mean, that's juicy, because this is my constant ponder. It just seems it doesn't go away ever. And in my dream life, I am constantly asking myself that in the dreamscape also. I'm trying to find out, like, what's really real seems to be like such a question for me. I already understand that the flesh we're in is temporal. I've never identified with my personal flesh in this experience, and when I've come into contact with the dreams of seeing reflections, and I'm not who I am here, and yet I am a different person. But there's always this sense of ego or I or id or whatever, this greater sense of personality and even within esoteric contexts where I've got a sense of connectedness on a large scale with a greaterness bigger than me, there's still this kernel there that is functioning, that is not functioning from, say, a hubris type stance. It's functioning from a greater stance, but there's still somehow a sense of self. It's not ego. I don't know how to get that out. I don't even know what that language should be. So that's why I
you could
question
quote Crowley
this.
and call it the Holy Guardian Angel.
Yeah, but I don't think of it in that way either. And so that's why language is so limited for how it's limiting. It's limiting. But that's why I asked you. I don't think I've ever.
Language is just a sigil.
Language is a sigil, I agree. And it's also a virus. Laurie Anderson. No, wait, Laurie was taking that from someone else though. Anyway, so on that note, where can people find you, Vanessa?
Well, all over the place, but not as many places as most people seem to be on. That was really vague. I have a couple websites. I have GnosticTempleOfInanna.org, and I have butterfliesandincantations.com. The former is my occult-related website, and the latter is my blog / sort of kind of trying to make a podcast sort of sometimes thing.
And also your music, which is fucking awesome.
And that's at vnessi.bandcamp.com.
Yeah, your music's awesome. Seriously. If you move out here, we're getting in a band. I'm way into your music.
Well, I appreciate that. Not very many
whereabouts
people
in
are.
Ohio are you?
I am in Dayton.
I don't know where Dayton is. Is it like east?
It's kind of.
I only know where
north of
Grimstake lives.
Cincinnati, west of Columbus. What?
No,
Well, James is in Ohio.
yeah, he's in Cleveland.
Yeah. James Cruz. They're cruising with steak people.
Yeah, Grimstake and.
Not really.
All right.
I know the culture.
Yeah, he's in Ohio too. There's some kind of something going on in Ohio, I think.
There is. There's Ohio definitely has
Ohio
a
is
situation.
boring, and we have to find more interesting things to do. Some of us that mean occult stuff.
I wonder, and I'm always wondering why so many, like, there's really great musicians that come out of Ohio and lots of occultists.
Oh, dead in
Really? Because like the
Ohio.
Ohio occult scene is so dead.
They
guess
leave
everyone is
Ohio.
moving to the West Coast.
Yeah, they leave Ohio, but they, I know so many from Ohio.
Hmm.
Just saying. Just
don't know.
saying. I know a ton of witches from Ohio. Yeah, just saying. So this has been a great pleasure. I just want to thank you again for being such a great participant in the Nox Mente server.
Yes, thank you so much.
I mean, you really make the wheels go round there. So, and then so many people wanted you on it. Grimsteak from Cruising with Steak that we were just talking about asked, he said, when is she getting on? You know, like I had 3 people in one day.
I was on his radar.
3 people in one day. I'm like, holy shit. All right, that's the sign. We're doing this.
That was because of Brent's server. Somebody said it, and like everyone was like, "Let's make this a thing."
Yeah, I was getting the DM. So, and then and we love Aaron David, and that's where I actually first heard you. So,
Aaron would kill me if I didn't mention the Peacock Goat review. I write for that his magazine.
Oh, did he ever publish my article? The bastard.
I don't know. I don't know, but he's published every one I've wrote, so
I wrote one for his first issue rather. I forgot all about that.
I don't know.
Like a year ago.
Jerry, you gotta look.
Well, let me see.
I thought he never finished it.
Vanessa's on it right now. Look at her. She's getting it.
Have it right here.
Cool.
Is it under Jerry?
I guess he didn't.
Oh shit.
Oh, I don't care. I don't care. You never. I don't remember. It was so long ago.
He might have put it in a later issue too, because like sometimes he does that. He'll be like, "Oh, this article will match this other upcoming issue," because he tries to like have a topic for each one, kind of in a sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird.
Well, at any
a lot
rate,
of times a bunch of people turn in articles about a topic at the same time, so he'll like hold them until they're and stick them all in the same issue.
I found the email. It was from August. Oh well, it doesn't matter.
So that would be a different issue than the one that I happen to have in front of me.
So
yeah.
This was a pleasure. Thank you, and thank you.
Thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Yeah, this was fun.
Thanks for coming on.
All the magic talk.
With the late notice on that. I apologize for that. Yeah, we were supposed to have Jason Miller tonight.
It just happened to be a day I was off.
I know, it worked out.
So we're going to reschedule with Jason. He had a family emergency and had to leave town. Godspeed, Jason. And next week we have Michael Wan, and that should be a really awesome conversation. He's got all that Susquehanna esoteric occult ritual stuff mapped out from the Susquehanna Valley, I think it is, right? Or the river, rather, but in the valley. So it should be interesting. Be sure to check it out. Anyway, good night, everyone.